Hey, Josh and Alicia here. We're the Herp and Harbins, and we're competing in the 15 Minutes of Lame this year. Today we've got Steven from Leviathan Snakes, and he is the 2002 winner of the 15 Minutes of Lame. Him and his wife Courtney.
2022.
What I say?
2002. We
Yeah,
haven't been
that's
around that long.
no. So we're going to get some insight on marketing and project strategy, how theirs has changed over the years. So welcome, Steven.
What's up, friends?
Hey, man, thanks for doing this with us. Can you just give us a little quick blurb on how you and Courtney jumped into this craziness and how Leviathan Snakes became who they are?
Yeah, I'm all down for it. So I've practiced this story over and over again in the mirror. So, all right. With this, so Courtney is the one, she's not here right now. She actually took Ellie to a train museum today.
Nice.
So that way
That's
Ellie's
cool.
not
That's
running
cool.
around in the background. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
But so Courtney is the one who started Leviathan Snakes, and she had pet reptiles like all the way since college. So I don't know, maybe like 15 years ish total. But she always had turtles beforehand, and she kept turtles, and eventually it got to the point with like water changes and things like that. I'm actually pretty sure that what happened is that there was she got one mouthful of turtle water too many times and decided that
That's pretty gross
this is
sounding,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she ended up like giving the turtles that we had to her coworker's kid because he loved reptiles and all that stuff, but she still wanted a reptile. And she got interested in ball pythons just because of all of their beautiful morphs and colors and things like that. And she ended up getting our very, very first ball python like right before COVID, right as COVID was kicking off. And his name's Amos. We still have him. He's a banana calico hidden gene Woma male. And we didn't have a single idea about the community. We didn't know anything about the social media aspect of it. She had found Morph Market initially and got overwhelmed because it's like, how do I buy this animal? Because she's used to like Amazon or like
Yeah.
Walmart or something like that. Petco, where you have like a buy now button. She couldn't figure it out. Didn't realize that you needed to like message somebody, but then you also might have to PayPal somebody, friends and family, in
Yeah.
order to get
Yeah.
this snake
Yeah.
in the mail. It was all super weird.
Yeah.
So,
Still is.
It still is weird some days. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So she ended up going and finding Dynasty online, just their website, and she purchased Amos from Dynasty. And at the time, she had sent me a couple different animals that she was interested in. All of them were spider animals, like spider combos.
Yeah.
We didn't know what it was. It's just spider caught her eye, and she really liked the way that they looked. And again, the boy that we ended up picking was a banana hidden gene Woma calico. So
Okay.
again,
Nice.
kind of in that spider complex
Same,
still.
yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
So we got him, and he was the best pet. I have never, it's not that I'm against animals, I just, growing up, didn't really have any pets aside from like a cat or something, and I'm not a super big animal person. Not that I have anything against animals, but I just didn't really care that much. But
Yeah.
Amos, Courtney's snake that she got, best pet that I've ever seen, ever had. So much so, like, we just loved him. Like, he is so cuddly. He was awesome. We loved him so much that I wanted to get my own as a pet. And Courtney started telling me about all the different morphs and combos, and she showed me Morph Market. And when she showed me Morph Market, I think there was like a super banana inchy clown that was like $2,000. And I thought it was insane. I was like, who would spend $2,000 on this animal? That's madness. That's crazy. And she's like, well, you could always like, we could always breed them and make it. And I'm like, what are we going to do with all the extra animals though? Like nobody's going to, like, we don't know anybody who wants to buy them. So we didn't do it at that point in time. And then
Okay.
later on, she came up to me and she told me that she found on like a Facebook group that somebody was rehoming a blue-eyed Lucy. And at the time on Morph Market, they were going for like $500, $600, and they were rehoming it for like $300. So we met up in a Bojangles parking lot with this person, and we bought the blue-eyed Lucy, and that was my very first snake. And they asked us if we were going to be going to like a Repticon that was coming up. And we didn't know anything about Repticon because we didn't know anything about the hobby. We didn't know that there were reptile shows. And they told us it was in the town that we were in. So we decided to go there that weekend. And while we were there that weekend and we really saw all the different morphs in person, this was like right as COVID was like, shows had opened up again, but you had like the time slot and everything that you
Oh,
had
yeah. I
to
remember
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So during this point, we ended up going to it, and I think that we decided that we would breed as a hobby. Like we'd just do
Okay.
like 2 or 3 clutches a year, make some cool different animals, and we'd sell the animals as best we could afterwards. But
Yeah.
we would make sure not to grow to the point where we couldn't care for all the animals if we were stuck with them. And we were just going to make like albinos and like I wanted to do an exanthic clown, but that was like early on, like
It's a little
exanthics and
higher
stuff
up
like
there,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it sounded like early, like more like hobby pet
Oh,
intention. Like,
100%.
yeah. Okay.
100%. So we did that, and as we did that, Courtney started posting the snakes on her personal Instagram. And when she started posting them on her personal Instagram, she got like 50 to 100 likes, which doesn't sound like a ton, but she had like 200 followers. And I, just on her personal Instagram, I, working in marketing, was like, this is a really, really good engagement rate. The fact that so many people are actually liking and commenting on this compared to the amount of people that you have following your account, you have something really, really cool here. So we ended up making a Instagram account for the snakes, and that was the start really of Leviathan Snakes. And I think this was like August of 2020 when we finally did that. And at that point, it grew really, really quickly. It, like, we were getting like 100 followers a week. It was really, really exciting. And a lot of other people were coming into the hobby. And it was probably a couple months later before we decided that we still wanted to do it as a hobby, but we wanted to get into like one higher end project so that way we could kind of be known for something. And we ended up choosing Sunset. And that's really the kind of like initial story. I know that's a really, really long way to say how we
No,
got
makes
into it, but
sense.
that's really how Leviathan Snake started. Is Courtney had reptiles as pets. We got a ball python as a pet. We loved it, had a great experience, got another one, and then got exposed to all the different morphs and got interested in making different combos. But it really was all a hobby. It was, we were excited about these animals, and that's why we wanted to do it. We weren't necessarily even really thinking like, oh, these can make money. I thought it was still insane to spend $1,000 for a snake at that
Well,
point.
and some days it still is, and I mean, we kind of question ourselves, like, what have we just done? But
We fell into it similarly. Like when I was a
Repticon.
kid, I never went to snake shows with Dad. He wouldn't take us. I,
Hmm.
probably why we lived tore up
Yeah.
his disabilities. And Alicia and I were walking around at a Repticon in Atlanta, and just like, this is amazing. Like, look at all these people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Look at all these animals.
we had pets, you know, kind of the same as y'all. We had pets, but
So, yeah, we got caught up in
it,
the excitement
and
too.
then
So
and that's once we stood and helped Tom a little bit, it just went crazy. We're like, this people actually do this as a business. This is
yeah,
a real
Hmm.
thing, and we're like, you know, the same thing. We kind of started off with hobby intentions that it will just support itself, and you know that's good that it does, but
it's funny you mentioned hobby. Next question, Stephen.
Okay, okay.
So compared to y'all's current focus versus your initial intentions,
Hmm.
hobby versus business versus side hustle, what would you say influenced your intentions from then to now?
So at first, again, had no idea about the community. We didn't realize how big the reptile world is. And I know that it's still a small community, but it is a pretty big. There's millions
yeah,
of
it is.
people who
Yeah.
own reptiles just in America.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't think that there was a very big market for people to own snakes. So we were very much focused on this is a hobby. We want to recreate some specific combos because we think the prices to buy those combos are outrageous and we're just going to make them ourselves. And that
Exactly.
that was how we initially started. It did not take very long before I realized that I was wrong and that there was a market for it and that there were a lot of people who were spending this money on these animals. And when that happened, then it did kind of switch over to like, well, maybe we could do this as a business at some point in time. But if we are going to do this as a business, we need to treat it like a business. And one of the biggest things that almost all small businesses struggle with is marketing. And again, because that's my day job, I was like, we have to do a good job marketing it up front. And I think that when we started doing that, there became some different avenues that we considered. At one point in time, our goal was to open a brick and mortar pet store, and it would be focused on the pet side of the market because what we thought was Courtney buying the snake initially. She was a woman, and at the time, like mid 20s and all that stuff, who didn't have any experience with the reptile hobby, and almost all of the people she interacted with were like curmudgeonly old men who seemed to just not be good business people.
Yeah.
Like, they loved the reptiles, we're not disputing that, but they were not good business people,
Yeah.
and honestly a little scummy. Not saying all of them in the reptile are, but we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we do. We do. Yeah.
Yeah. And she wanted one of the first value positions that we were going to do for Leviathan Snakes was that Leviathan Snakes was going to be a small pet ball python breeder that focuses on people who want a reptile but are not, who are intimidated by all of this kind of like boys club kind
Yeah.
of sketchy aspect of the reptile hobby and appeal more to the public. So that's actually why our color scheme is the way it is that we chose purple because we felt that it signaled, it was more welcoming and positive than a lot of the darker color schemes that we see or saw in
Very
the
true.
reptile hobby at that point in time.
That's true. That's true. I mean,
Nice.
we you know, orange around here especially is very much
Mm-hmm.
adored and loved, and so we didn't want it to be dark either. We didn't want
Mm-hmm.
that darkness and that kind of. We wanted to be inviting, I guess, is the way that we were looking at it.
Yeah.
So I think y'all are definitely that kind of inviting couple that anybody could approach, and I think that's a huge difference with the way we saw it back then too, compared to as things have changed. So you started off in Instagram, personal, then
Yep.
shifted it to more of a business avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like it grew pretty quickly, just
Oh
you
yeah.
know, essentially using what posts, daily like
Yep.
picture posts and things like that. How has that changed? Like, you know, you started with that and you know, obviously we know you have Patreon, you have YouTube, you have all these other avenues. Why did you start
Mm-hmm.
pushing into that? And did that kind of even accelerate your marketing abilities at that point?
I think so, because I think at the very, very beginning, so my job before the one that I have now, I used to work for the National Guard and I was a social media manager for the South Carolina Army National Guard. And when I first started that, I had like experience in photography, but I didn't have experience in videography, and I did not like videography at first. And the reason why I didn't like videography is I felt that it took so much more work to make a video that would be one post versus just taking a good picture, and they would get about the same results from a marketing perspective. So I liked photography better. And at first, I disliked videography, but as I got better at it, I ended up liking videography more than I liked photography, and I felt photography was like too easy, if that makes sense. Like
I get
just
it.
simply taking a picture and then it's done. It
Yeah.
got a little boring for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
can see that. Yeah.
I very much liked videography as its own hobby thing, and the being able to do a reptile YouTube channel was kind of an outlet for that kind of interest as well, beyond just the snakes. It was like, oh, I can do like videography stuff, but in this realm and make it kind of serve a purpose. So that's one aspect of it. The second one is that while we did initially start off wanting to focus on pet people, specifically the public who's not part of the reptile hobby getting their first pets, that was one of our initial focuses.
Yeah.
When I got into Sunset and we started focusing on that, it was like, all right, no random public member of the public is going to buy a $5,000 snake. It's just not going to happen. The only people who are going to buy those animals are other breeders who are wanting to breed that $5,000 snake so they can make snakes like that. So with that, the marketing that we were doing on Instagram wasn't really effective to attract those types of people's attention and get them to want to buy from us. And my thoughts on it were, if I was somebody who was considering buying $5,000 animals for a reptile business, I'm going to be treating it like a business. And what are areas that I might not be good at that I'm going to be researching to try to get better at? And I feel like marketing was one of them. I'm like, well, that's something I have experience in. So when we started the YouTube channel, a lot of the initial videos were focused on marketing a reptile business. And nobody else in the reptile space realistically even now does videos like that. There's some people who talk about business but not really about marketing really, and I feel that the fact that nobody was really talking about that specific type of content in the reptile space made it where our YouTube channel kind of caught traction within breeders fairly quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense. You kind of filled in a gap, and that, kind of blossomed in its own. And so and I know we've watched a lot of that. I
Yeah,
mean,
it drew us
we're
in.
still not real good at
You're
it,
doing
but
something right. Keep it up.
but it did keep us engaged in learning about that, because we are lacking in that, and it has helped a lot. Um, and then you've morphed into Patreon. What
Yep.
influenced
Yep.
that?
So there was like a wave of reptile people getting into Patreon. I don't know, maybe a year or two after we got in. And there were, again, awesome people. I love them. There's friends in our hobby who jumped into Patreon, but I personally felt that they jumped in too early, and we deliberately chose not to do a Patreon at that time, even though we did have a somewhat small but successful YouTube channel. And a lot of people had asked us if we would do a Patreon at that time, but we said no. And part of the reasons why we didn't do it was I didn't feel that we were in the position where we could actually like justify the value of people actually paying us money for like additional content from Patreon. And there was a challenge of time, because at that point in time, like, we were doing the YouTube channel, we were posting daily on Instagram, we had all of the regular snake stuff, we had full-time jobs, we have the kids, and then regular social stuff. Like, for a bit we were doing D&D every other Friday on Fridays. So
Nice.
with all of those things together, we're like, I don't think this is really something we could do.
Much.
And it changed. It was March of this year, 2023, when we launched the Patreon. And so it took us, what is that, 4 years to actually, from when we started to doing the Patreon, which in a lot of people's eyes is probably still too early, because a lot of people are like, you need to be doing it for like 15 years before that. But I felt that what we were doing was our biggest value proposition on the Patreon was that if you think you're going to buy a snake from us, joining the Patreon will let you get that exact same snake for cheaper, because we do like the Patreon discount. Any money that you spend in your Patreon, you can use as a credit to it, so you're not losing anything. And you can get access to the weekly podcast, and hopefully we can create like a community inside the Patreon that can help people become better integrated into the reptile hobby faster than trying to do it all on your own.
Yeah, definitely. It's a beneficial area for marketing ideas too. Y'all have been really good at kind of keeping that focus too, and helping that group grow in that direction. So that's pretty cool, because I don't think all the Patreons before y'all had that intention either. There are some that have marketing dabbled in it, but I feel like y'all had that more focused, at least for us.
And I'm really happy that we did the Patreon. I am also happy that we didn't do it earlier, because I think that there's a chance that if we had done it earlier, it might not have gone as well, and we might have gotten discouraged by it. Like, if we started it and nobody signed up for the first 3 months, it'd be like, oh, well, we tried it and we failed and nobody wants this, and then we wouldn't try it later on. But the fact that we waited so long and that so many people joined so quickly, I was like, oh, this makes me feel really good. Maybe that's wrong, but
Nice.
But yeah, I was pretty excited about it. So overall, what I say now is we do Instagram. We're not as focused on growing on Instagram as we used to, because, and again, maybe I'm wrong, I'm not trying to be like conceited on this, I feel that the majority of the breeding hobby either follows us already on Instagram, or they know who we are and they chose not to follow us because they don't like us for some reason, which is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
That's a good way to look at it. A good perspective.
Yeah. So on Instagram, anybody who happens to follow us right now, it's like, great, that's fine. But for the most part, we don't have to worry about growing on that. On YouTube, I feel like it's similar, but we don't have as many followers on YouTube as we do on Instagram, because I think we're at like 6,000, 6,500 on YouTube, but we're at like 22,000 on Instagram. So again, we're not like viral or anything like that, but on YouTube, the people who watch the YouTube are super, super loyal. They're super engaged. And like on Instagram, somebody might follow us, like a couple posts, and we never see it, and we never even talk to them. But on YouTube, like, people really, really tend to like the YouTube, and I feel like that at this point now, YouTube sells more of our snakes than any other platform. Okay. And YouTube also drives the Patreon, because people who like watching us on YouTube tend to also sign up for the Patreon too.
That does make
That makes
sense.
sense. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Nice. Well, so how would you say that your project planning has changed over the years? Do you think you're following the typical progression of most breeders, or do you think you're chasing the market influence?
Um, I don't know. I would say
Good
starting
answer.
off, yeah, yeah. I don't fully know because yeah, I don't fully know. I think there are things that we chase because it's like a cool combo comes out like that's amazing. I have to make it. 100% that happens. Um, Initially, we didn't know what we were doing. We made all the same mistakes that everybody does, where you see a beautiful animal and I'm like, I want to buy it. And then you try to force it into some kind of plan, but you bought it because it's pretty. That's why you bought it.
Yeah.
But you didn't
Yeah.
buy it for a reason. Um, so that happened a lot at the beginning. But I feel that one of the biggest differences that we did versus other people, not saying this is a good thing, we got lucky on it. We jumped into, I'm not gonna say high end as in like $30,000, but relative to what we were thinking, like we jumped into expensive snakes very, very early. So our first couple seasons, we were producing pretty expensive snakes. Like our story, I've said it before. When we got into Sunset, a visual male Sunset asking price was like $4,500. There were none available on Morph Market. None at all. There were hets, but there weren't any visuals. And I had seen that Brock Wagner had made Sunsets in the past, but I didn't know who Brock Wagner was. I didn't know anything like that. And I was searching for Brock Wagner on the internet, seeing if he had a website to see if he had stuff listed on a website that wasn't on Morph Market. And I came across his old website and I found his phone number and I called him. I called him and I asked him, like, hey, because I thought he was like a business. I didn't think that this was like a person. I just thought this was like a business. I'm like, oh, hey, do you guys happen to have any sunsets available? And he's like, I do. I just hatched out 2 male sunsets, but they haven't even had their first meal yet. Who is this and how did you get my number? Like,
My number.
like, and I was like, oh, my name's Steven Caps. We're like new ball python breeders, and I found it on your website. And he's like, I have a website? Like, and it's like an old website from like back in the day he had forgotten about. Like,
Oh my gosh, that would be Brock, wouldn't it? That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
yeah. So he told me he had those 2 animals, and he had said that like his asking price was $4,500 for a male at the time. And I offered him, I asked him, like, completely understand if you don't want to do this. Would you be willing to do $3,500 paid in full? Like, I'll send you the money right now, and you can send the animal whenever it's ready. Because it hadn't even had its first meal yet.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even done anything.
He agreed to it, so we bought that first animal, $3,500 animal, maybe like 3 or 4 months after we decided to start breeding ball pythons. Like, we had him as a pet and all that stuff, but that was like, it was pretty early on. And pretty much right after we bought it is when COVID really kicked off and all of the prices went up. And at the peak of it, I was seeing sunsets on Morph Market being listed for like $7,000, just single gene sunset male for $7,000 and selling in a day. And it was wild because we bought ours at 3,500, and I'm like, oh, this is insane. All of the
great
prices
deal.
are going super, super high. By the time we produced babies with him, the prices for sunsets, single gene sunsets, were $5,000, and we made 5 clutches with him his first season. That $3,500 we invested in him was the best investment and pure return I have ever made on anything in my entire life.
That's nice. That's impressive. And you know, that doesn't get to happen to everybody, but at least you made the move at the right time. Whatever that trigger was that told you do it, you did it the right time and you kind of got, you know, you went the direction you needed to go. I mean, calling somebody's phone number on a website, you never know what you're going to get. Like,
Yeah.
you meet somebody that's been in the industry as long as he has, that has some incredible snakes. And so we know sunset's a big part of your world, and we would like you to share, either show us a snake. I know that's not your favorite thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
But a snake, or at least tell us like some project ideas that you are able to share with us about something that you're working on.
Oh, yeah. I could 100% do that. So if I'm going to share a snake, I got to go out because like I'm inside and they're in like another building over there. So I'd have to go grab something and come inside. So I might do that later on. But on project stuff. So we're very focused on Sunset. That's my favorite project. Courtney's favorite project is like the asphalt yellow belly complex stuff, like super asphalts and things like that. So there are a couple different things that I'm super super stoked about. This season, as in 2025, is our first shot at like Sunset Ultramel stuff. So we are pairing a Bongo triple het Sunset Ultramel hypo male to 3 different double het Sunset Ultramel girls, and one of them's at 25 millimeters right now. So I'm pretty excited about that. Again, long odds, but if we can get one Sunset Ultramel, I don't even care. I don't care what else ever else it has in it. If we can get a Sunset Ultramel,
That would be awesome. That would be awesome
I'd
for
love
sure.
to see that.
Those are beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, I'm super excited about that. We were late. I slept on Puzzle. It's not that I thought Puzzle looked bad, but I didn't think that it did enough for me to like really want to get into it until Brock hit the Sunset puzzle, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect for Sunset. It's one of the best Sunset combos. Honestly, I think it's one of the best Sunset combos and one of the best puzzle combos is the Sunset puzzle.
Very cool. Very cool.
So we are pairing a pastel hypo double het Sunset puzzle mail to a bunch of stuff. And there's actually 2 pairings I'm not allowed to talk about because they're a collab. So I'm not allowed to talk about them publicly, but I can tell you guys afterwards. But the stuff I can talk about because they're ours is pairing him to a Orange Dream Sunset, pairing him to a Blackhead Confusion Red Stripe Het Puzzle Girl, pairing him to a I'm forgetting a Leopard Het Sunset. I don't think she's not going to be up to size yet, but he'll go to a Fire Sunset Het Hypo female. There's like a Pastel Het Puzzle female that we have. There's like a ton of different stuff. I'm really excited about Sunset Puzzle, and the fact that he is a hypo double het Sunset Puzzle.
That's even better.
Awesome.
That's even better. Has anybody produced a visual leopard sunset?
Oh yeah. So
okay. I guess I've just
Brock,
seen it.
Yeah, Brock and Brad Boa, they had made the very first leopard sunset, and it was a female, and we actually bought her, so we have her.
Oh wow, cool.
But yeah. So she's a breeder now, and she's given us 1 clutch. Yeah, she's given us 1 clutch so far. So.
Cool.
We have been pairing her for this upcoming season to an Inchy Gravel hypo clown male. So
make a whole nother like avenue. Sounds pretty cool there. Very cool.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. Those are some crazy plans, actually. Some cool combos.
Oh, I'm super excited. So yeah, we're doing like a lot of double stuff. We have chances for like chocolate. We have chances for like Super NC Super Chocolate Sunset DGs. We have stuff for like Banana Inchy OD Sunset Clowns. We are very heavy on Sunset, and a lot of our initial holdbacks are all up to size and breeding now.
Nice. Very cool. Well, those are awesome. We'll let you in on something we did. So we Tom's, there was a Sunset male, and there was a GHI het Sunset. I'm pretty sure he already paired them earlier this year, but she hadn't progressed until just the last, I don't know, I guess it was probably about a month ago when I ultrasounded. And as much as I was like, okay, do we make more sunsets, or do we make some GHI sunsets, or do we do something different? So we did something different. Okay. And we took the male and we paired him to a pastel Monarch het G-stripe.
Yes.
We took the female and paired her to, she's a GHI het sunset. We paired her to a Monarch het G-stripe. So there's going to be Monarch sunset G-stripe combos. So I have no idea what that's going to do. We unfortunately don't have anything old enough for clown yet that's visual Monarch. And so that's going to be probably a later avenue. But we looked at the Ultramel sunset and we're like,
oh yeah,
let's do this, and then we've talked to a couple other people about like, what is what is G-stripe gonna do with sunset? And we're like, oh, maybe it'll just bring the whole side up. I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting to see all that together.
I have not seen it, but I have heard that somebody has made the Sunset G-stripe, and they have intentionally not shared pictures because it's not a super. What I heard, again, I have not seen it. This is like rumors.
It may not be. Yeah.
It's not super. It wipes out all the pattern.
Yeah, I
So it's
wondered
like
if
you
it
have
did
the
that or not.
sunset colors, but you don't have any pattern, which is fine. But like
Yeah.
people like the
Really.
sunset pattern too. Like,
Yeah, you want to have both parts of it
mhm,
there. So it is kind of interesting. You wondered which thing would override which,
mhm.
but G Stripe's so
But
heavy in
maybe,
Monarch that we're
mhm.
working with that we thought, you know what, we'll just throw it in there and just see what happens. But you never know; it may bring pattern back if you add Monarch with it, because Monarch is a strong pattern
Yeah.
Mhm.
influencer also. But
Yeah.
very cool. But this has been great. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, yeah. So for you guys, for the 50 minutes of lame contest, what are you guys like most excited about essentially getting out of the contest, developing with the contest? What are you most excited about?
I think the connections, like I love seeing the
Mhm.
camaraderie that all the past winners have. And then even if you don't win, you still make just some fantastic links and connections, and we learn a lot
Yeah.
just watching other
Mhm.
people. So the community aspect of it alone has been a win. So
Yeah, definitely. I think probably for me right now, it is pushing us to learn marketing ideas and, video editing and those things that we've been talking about for months, but we just haven't had the push to do it. And this
Mhm.
is a time that we are going to implement it. We're going to learn this because it is, I think, an important avenue. I think we both do for marketing the what's now going to be a business. No, we didn't
Mhm.
intentionally want it to be like a big old business that took up all our time, but we've had things happen this year that has pushed it a little bit faster than planned. And so we're really needing to step our game up. And this is by far giving us both connections to push it through, but also making us do it. Like there's a timeline.
Mhm.
And we're both very
Yeah.
time
we need
oriented,
deadlines.
we need
Yeah.
deadlines. We're like very analytical and like we want to follow the process. And this gives us that structured, hey, you've got to get this done. You got to do
Yeah.
this now.
Mhm.
And so I think it's going to be a really great competition too. There's a lot of good people on it.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So one thing I was actually working on this for a different video, but I am down to share it here because I think it's useful, and it made me kind of pay more attention to the ways that we make content. But so there's like a marketing theory on that any effective form of marketing is an exchange of value. And the value that you're exchanging is the audience is giving you their attention and time, and that you, as a creator, as a marketer, have to some way provide them value in return. And if you're like trying to sell a product, maybe that value is convenience,
Okay.
or the value is like a more inexpensive price compared to the competitors. But when we're talking about social media, we are not getting people to buy things, at least not really on this. So the value isn't like, here's the cheapest price ever, or here's the easiest process ever in order to buy a car, or something like that. Instead, you have to use other forms of value like educational value, entertainment value, there's five of them that come up in it. But when you are making content, you can have like a primary piece of value. Like let's say that your primary piece of value for this content is education. I'm going to teach somebody something. If you just teach somebody something, you might be able to get people to watch it, but oftentimes, like one set of values that you are presenting is kind of shallow, and people don't like it, doesn't register with them. They might watch it, they might learn how to do it, but then they forget about it later on, or they forget about you later on. They might remember the thing you taught them. And instead, if you're able to get two or three different pieces of value layered into every single piece of content that you make, you can get people to really connect with you as an individual, and you can stand out from other people. So like an example of this is, let's say that you made videos that were educational in focus. Doesn't matter what the topic is. You're like, I am going to teach people things in every single video. And as I teach people things, I want to try to inspire them so that way I can convey that even if you are a brand new person in this specific sphere, you can do it too. And here's how you can do it too. So now you're adding in inspiration and motivation on top of education. And then the last one is if you can maybe be a little funny and you can have an entertainment value. So you are educating, inspiring, and being a little humorous. Maybe you're self deprecating or something. all of those together can make somebody that really connects with you as an individual, and over time it can create really, really loyal followings. But you can have the exact same thing. You can have somebody who is educational, you can have somebody that's inspiring, and maybe instead of humorous, it's controversial. So everything is exactly the same thing, where it's like, I'm going to teach somebody in every single video. I'm going to say that anybody can do this, but rather than trying to be funny, I'm going to do it in a way where it's like, anybody can do this, but the vast majority of people are too lazy to do it. If you're
That makes
willing to be
sense.
different, you can do it too. It's the exact same type of content, but it's positioned different, and it's two wildly different personalities.
Yes. Yes. That makes sense. That's great insight. And it does, it's nice to be able to kind of see the thought process of somebody that's very good with marketing, aka you, and how you make sure that your content does have that value and then reaches out like that. So that's a good insight.
Yeah, I feel like that, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying that everybody's gonna learn everything from every single video, but I always try to, like, if I watched this video, what would I learn about it? But I'm gonna try to do a more deliberate effort of layering in other types of value too. So it's like, this video is an educational video and an inspiring video. This video is an educational video and an entertainment video. And then it's like the intersections of those different ones will create, like, hopefully more effective content.
Nice. Nice. Very cool. Well, can't thank you enough for spending time with us. We always have a good time talking to you. And we really look forward to the contest. And we kind of hope we make everybody proud with our what we're planning. And we'll see how it all turns out here in a few weeks. So thanks so much, Stephen. We really appreciate you being on here with us. So,
Thank you for having me, friends. It was awesome.
yes. Thanks, man.